we've heard already from a product brand, a services brand. The next speaker that we have represents an iconic brand. And as the CMO of the organization, she is very focused on reaching the business audience. Okay, she said her target customer base is about 10,000 customers. Okay, and she uses the digital medium to do this very effectively. And naturally, that's a very different approach than a consumer marketing approach. So it will be wonderful to hear from Virginia, VP Marketing for IBM India.
Thanks. All right, good afternoon. Everybody awake? Okay, good. So I think Arn gave an excellent sort of setup for me. IBM, as many of you all know, is a B2B brand. We're a 100-year-old brand. And today what I'm going to try and do is give you about 3 lessons on the backs of a couple of stories. I'm going to present 1 case study, and I'm going to leave you with 1 question and an area that I need help. And I'm looking forward to you reaching out or suggesting some probable solutions for me and my brand. So as Arun said, if you look at the B2B space, specifically in our area, there's only about 2,000 companies that I really care about, that have substantial enough IT budget for them to even want to consider working with us. Within those 2,000 companies, there's about 4 roles that have any level of influence or on the decision-making on IT budgets. That's the CEO, CIO, CMO, and CFO. So that's where the 10,000 comes from. Not a very big number. So you can understand why this medium has always been front and center for us, because our target audience is so specific. But to reach those 10,000 people, I need to influence another million in an ecosystem, whether it be academia, believe it or not, their families, other types of influencers who are key analysts, and so on and so forth. But very importantly for me in that ecosystem is the IBM employee. And the reason for that is that the IBM brand is primarily experienced through the IBMer. And there are about 425,000 IBMers around the world. A large number of those sit in India. And if they don't understand my brand, it doesn't matter how much I spend on digital, it doesn't matter how much advertising I do. At the end of the day, business is done with the IBMer. And so, separate from targeting those 10,000 people on digital, what I have to figure out is what is the role of digital on building brand advocates through the IBMer. And that's going to be one of the areas that we are looking at exploring and where we want to do better. So the clicker looks like this, I think. Is that a clicker? Yeah. So this is Thomas J. Watson, Jr. And there's a lot that can be learned from a company that is 100 years old, not just about being old, but about change. And this is something that he said almost 90 years ago. I believe an organization is to meet the challenge of a changing world, it must be prepared to change everything about itself except the beliefs as it moves through corporate life. How many of you all know what we made when we first started IBM? So weighing scales, meat cutters, typewriters, that's what we started as. We've changed a lot over the years, right? And so when you look at an organization that is tuned to change, it is a relatively easy environment to introduce things like digital, because it is built into the ethos of the company. So if it starts from the top and makes its way down, it really does help us from a marketing perspective when there's an ethos of open-mindedness at the top. Now, this is a journey that we've been on over the last few years, and some of you may know that IBM almost died about 20 years ago. And the reason why we almost died is that we did not pick up a critical change happening in the industry, the PC time, and it almost killed us. We couldn't pay payroll. We couldn't make payroll, almost couldn't make payroll. And if you look at the subsequent sort of movements and shifts, and you can see the press has been sometimes friendly and sometimes not so friendly. And that's all still going to happen for all your companies. You know, there's going to be people who say good things about you on Twitter and people who are not, and that's okay. It'll happen. But what we discovered is when we were actually making our way up the journey, it's because we were able to spot trends very quickly and get ahead of those trends. So when you look at e-business, that happened. We were the ones that introduced that, and we were able to make a market out of that for the whole industry, and the industry grew. And then we picked up on Smarter Planet. I'll talk a little bit about that in the case study, and that also grew the industry, and we also grew. And so the main message that I have over here is where we changed quickly, where we listened and were able to take a trend in the market, we succeeded. Where we missed the trend, we didn't. And the next big trend for us from our new CEO is digital, and it is CMOs with digital. So we're going to bet a lot of our business on the fact that digital is going to be the next big thing. And the message really is that we really think that CMOs are going to take a lead over here. Does anybody know who this is? It's Neil Armstrong. So this was July 20th, 1969. And a little known fact, and as you go through our 100-year-old history, is that you'll discover that we actually helped put him on the moon. So these are IBM engineers sitting with NASA scientists in Houston on the day that we were trying to get, we worked with 3 missions, Apollo, Mercury, and one other one. And we built the onboard computer as well as the computer in Houston. And so this was them working together, and just a small story and an interesting one, but an important lesson will come out of this, is that about 400 feet before the lunar landing module was about to land on the moon, an alarm went off. It was the 1202 alarm. And the 1202 alarm is basically that the system was getting overloaded with data, and the onboard computer might shut down in the lunar landing module. Now, if you're sitting in Houston, you have to make a call, whether 400 feet before you land on the moon, whether you want to abort the mission. A few seconds later, they said, no, let's continue. A few seconds later, the 1201 alarm went off, which is a more severe version of the alarm. And that basically says the onboard computer will shut down, as in Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin will not be able to come back. You've sort of lost contact with the lunar landing module. What are you going to do when you're sitting in Houston, right? Now, interestingly, when they ran the simulation before they launched the mission, the simulation showed that the computer would shut down, that these 2 alarms would go off. But the IBM engineers actually ran a bunch of tests, and they looked at the data again, and they worked with NASA, and they said, look, we've looked at the numbers, and we know that the computer will not shut down. It can handle the data. And so lo and behold, they gave the go-ahead to land, and history was made that day. Now you say, Virginia, why are you telling this story about, other than the fact that it's a really great story, and to be able to land somebody on the moon, anybody on the moon, is a big deal. I tell this story because if NASA treated IBM as a vendor of System 360s, which is what all we did, to be honest, and put them on the lunar landing module, they would not have landed the lunar landing module, because all the data showed that you should not do this. The simulation showed it, the alarms showed it, but there was enough trust and partnership between the IBM team and the NASA team to say, look, we should go ahead and do this. And the lesson over here is for the digital industry. As I hear conversations and a little bit of antagonism between marketeers and agencies, right, it is not a collaborative environment. And when we're trying to do something new like digital, and none of us have done it before, it's new, it's almost like landing a man on the moon or a woman on the moon, there's got to be a little bit of a different interaction between the vendors in this space and the marketeers. It's a scary thing. We need partners in this journey. We need shared outcomes. Dialogues and questions like, you know, why aren't you spending 10% on digital? Why aren't, you're spending 5%, you should spend 10%. Doesn't create an environment where this industry will grow it doesn't create an environment where history is going to get made with this stuff. So that's my first story on this. So let me show you a few pictures. These are pictures from the IBM archives that were interesting. This first one is of Venezuela, 1957. This is of Philippines, 1961. This is of 1963, and this is Nigeria, 1965. These are pictures from our archives of the opening days, the first day of offices that we opened in these countries. Now, does anybody notice anything interesting about these pictures of the first day in a new country? Dress code. So remember, this is the inaugural day of us starting business in a new country. First time we're doing business, first time we're doing it in that country. Local people and dress code. So the thing to notice over here is this is in the IBM archives. We have no pictures of buildings, of ribbon cutting ceremonies on the first day of opening an IBM office in a new country. They're all pictures of classrooms. They're classrooms at the customer's location, in institutes, in IBM offices where we've brought people in to learn the technology in the application in their business. And I give you these examples because when you're making new markets, when you're introducing new technology into a space, the way we have in our 100-year history, whether it be meat cutters or System 360s or anything else like that, you have to educate first. Right? You can't come with your big brands and your credential presentations and come with your big branding. I don't care if you're Google or Yahoo or Comely or any of the brands over there. You have to be invested in educating my teams, educating my leaders, and taking all of us along. And that might end up meaning that you're educating us for us to do business with other agencies. When we did this, we probably did that for other companies. We created an industry out of it. But it's about the fact that you got to educate first. So that's my second message. My first message is collaboration is very important. The second one is that if you're in this for the long term, you're going to have to educate before you sell. So those are two stories. Fast forward to present day is where I talk about my case study in the last few minutes, which is we observed in 2008 something very interesting happening. And there was some alluding to this earlier, which is we observed that there were things that didn't look like computers that were acting like computers. They were collecting data, so the planet was getting instrumented. And things like on roadways, cameras on roadways were becoming computers. Power grids were becoming computers. Natural systems were becoming computers. And all of these different instruments were collecting data. And it was an observation as we were listening to dialogue that if you can harness the power of the data being collected, all these different types of data, and you can feed that back in a meaningful way to decision makers, business leaders, they'll make different types of decisions. They'll make smarter decisions. So we were observing this, and we wanted to start the conversation, but it was 2008. What happened in 2008, 2009? It's a recession. Most brands in that time buckled down and shut down marketing and were focused on their existing customers, cross-selling to them, keeping them, growing their wallet share. We introduced Smarter Planet in 2009. Huge risk. But here's the thing, Smarter Planet didn't start as an ad campaign or a marketing campaign. It was a speech that the CEO gave that got so much discussion and conversation around it in face-to-face forums, in social space, that we said, no, we need to do this. There's a phenomenon going on. We need to respond. We need to engage. We need to build a platform to have that dialogue. So Smarter Planet started in a social way that ultimately took form in tons and tons of marketing tactics and millions of dollars of spend, right? This is an example of a very traditional campaign, if you think about big brand budgets, that started with getting ahead of the curve, listening to conversations, and responding to them at a time where no one else wanted to talk about them. This is the monkey example, which is we weren't doing what everybody else was doing. We were doing something different. We were going to make a market, just like it's in our heritage to do. And it really did pay off. So you can see that not a lot of companies' balance sheets in the recession look like this. This is ultimately what measures whether Smarter Planet worked or not. This is the way we look at whether Smarter Planet worked or not. Notice there's nothing about likes or clicks or anything. It's about EPS, gross profit margin, market value. It worked, and we're going to continue doing it. But the broader message for our brand is that our brand is also really strengthened at a time where people have maybe grown single digits or not so much. We've been able to do it, which leaves me with my closing point, which is, what do you think keeps a brand healthy and vibrant and growing? See, our brand strategy is not to focus on brand visibility or buzz. It's really about relevance, and relevance is earned. It's not bought. I can buy brand visibility. All of you can sell me brand visibility on your networks and so on and so forth, but how do you create relevance? And our premise is that relevance can only be created if there's something deeper, right? And our brand philosophy is that you need to be a great company and therefore a great brand. So you don't need to do anything. So if I stop talking about the brand and focus on something much deeper, which in our mind is character, corporate character, right? Very tough word, very big word. But corporate character is what we believe in, what we stand for, and it's much deeper than that. And this is where I need help. If I'm not going to talk about the brand, right? If I'm not going to focus on visibility, and this is the corporate character that I really want to drive. Notice I don't talk about products, so if you come and pitch to me as some kind of a campaign to promote products, it won't matter to me. I need people to believe this. I need to shape belief. And when you move from generating buzz, generating clicks, generating brand awareness, to helping a brand shape belief in their corporate character, the work changes. The conversation changes, the brief changes. So the point I want to leave you with, and this is my last chart, is this is my organizational sort of function and the 3 areas that my team focuses on. I need the most help on the first one, which is shaping belief in my target audience and the ecosystem around it, around what my corporate character is. And to do that, my hypothesis is that digital can help me do that. I don't know how yet, so I'd like to leave you with that thought, that if you have any good ideas on how I can build authentic advocates for my corporate character using digital, I would be very interested in hearing your thoughts. So with that, I close there, and I invite our moderator up to ask me any questions. Thank you.
So you talked about corporate character and corporate brand. These are things that can be impacted not just by the products you sell, but by everything you do as a company. How you treat your employees, how socially responsible you are. All of these things make a difference when it comes to corporate brand, right? And in this age, when there is so much of social conversations that are happening about everything that you might be doing as a company, how are you planning to actually engage with your prospective customers, prospective employees on the social web? I know you said that you need help, but yeah. Do you have any thoughts, any contemplated steps that you can share?
Yeah, so we have some thoughts. We don't know if it'll work or not, but last year we celebrated the centennial, and the activity that generated the most enthusiasm amongst the employees was a thing called the celebration of service. So the idea is every IBMer committed about 8 hours of mandatory community service. And what we found is on Centennial Day, June 16th, when they all went out and you have 100,000 people or so doing community service, they all wanted to share pictures of what they did, you know, if they worked at a school and so on and so forth. So we found the most vibrant social community that was self-organized was on Facebook. Of all the employees that wanted to share pictures of them, we gave them all t-shirts so they all looked the same, wearing IBM t-shirts, and suddenly we have thousands and thousands of pictures of IBMers with their families on this Facebook site. So what we discovered is we think that the thing that defines the Indian IBMer is this spirit of community service, and we want to harness that. So we just launched a new site called desicorp.com, which is DESICORPS.com. And the idea is we interview a lot of our volunteers who go to other parts of the world and also who are volunteering here every day to share some of their experiences and how they're helping drive technology uses in communities. So we're seeing whether that will become an anchor point, and a lot of social conversations can be driven about the role of technology in education and advancement in various healthcare issues. So we're starting with corporate service, corporate community service, which is also under my team, but there could be other areas that could really spark the character thought. So that's what we're trying.
Yeah, so what exactly are you looking for when you're looking for partners? I mean, maybe a lead I can take back home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. See, employee engagement, not a lot of people come and pitch things for, believe it or not, pitch things for employee engagement. They pitch a lot of things that are much more traffic-oriented, that are outside the firewall to get the word out about your brand, awareness about your brand. Now, not a lot of people, we don't need brand awareness, it's IBM, right? So what I'm really looking for is agencies with some level of experience on for this particular area, with some potentially HR consultants or board, or some experience on this idea of what motivates employees, how do you get them to engage on platforms, what are the different things that I need to do to enable them on maybe social tools to get them to participate. So to really treat my employees as a target audience. And I don't know a lot of agencies coming to pitch to say, we've done some work with HR companies, with recruitment companies, and we've learned something about how to work and motivate employees. So I think that would be an interesting way to pitch, to say we have experience in employee engagement. Thanks very much.